Have you ever stumbled across a piece of history so strange, so unexpectedly bold, that it makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about the ancient world? Today, we are stepping straight into that feeling. All around the planet, hidden beneath cities, buried under lakes, carved into mountainsides, or sitting silently in open deserts, are archaeological discoveries that simply refuse to fit neatly into our timeline of human progress. They are real, measurable, and meticulously studied, yet they remain wrapped in questions that no one has fully answered. These are not legends passed down by word of mouth. They are not exaggerations or imaginative stories. They are physical places and artifacts you can visit, photograph, and examine yourself. And the deeper experts investigate them, the more these sites reveal how incredibly capable ancient societies were, sometimes in ways that seem to stretch far beyond what we expect from their eras. What makes these discoveries so fascinating is not just their age, but their ambition. Imagine attempts to carve stones heavier than modern warships. Picture underground cities large enough to shelter entire communities for months. Think of artworks so unique that they do not resemble anything else from their region or their time. Or massive geometric shapes drawn across the earth, visible only from the sky, with no clear explanation for who built them or why. Each discovery raises the same powerful question: how did ancient people accomplish these things? They did not have engines, digital tools, satellite mapping, or modern machinery. And yet, they left behind structures and objects that continue to challenge our assumptions about engineering, creativity, and cultural complexity. Today, we are taking a journey through 8 of the most astonishing archaeological mysteries ever uncovered, sites that remain puzzles even after decades of research. These discoveries invite us not only to admire the skills of ancient builders and artists, but also to stay curious about what pieces of human history might still lie buried, waiting to be found. So settle in, let your imagination open up, and get ready to explore some of the world's most mind-bending archaeological mysteries, stories that continue to remind us just how incredible, inventive, and surprising human history truly is. Our first stop takes us to the outskirts of Nanjing, where one of the most ambitious stone carving projects in human history suddenly halted, leaving behind silent monuments to a dream that never came true. The Yangshan Quarry looks, at first glance, like an ordinary extraction site. But once you step closer, you realize you are standing in front of stones so massive that even modern machinery would struggle to move them. During the early 15th century, under the reign of the Yongle Emperor of the Ming Dynasty, workers were ordered to carve gigantic monoliths for a towering monument intended to honor the emperor for generations. What they created still defies belief: 3 colossal stone blocks carved directly from the mountain itself. The largest of these weighs an estimated 16,000 tons, a mass greater than many modern naval vessels. What makes this extraordinary is not just the size, but the ambition behind it. Imagine thousands of workers carving for months under the sun, each strike of the chisel echoing through the quarry. Every surface of those blocks shows the careful, intentional labor of people who believed they could shape something unmatched in scale. Yet despite all that effort, the blocks were never transported to the mausoleum. They remain exactly where they were carved, frozen mid-project, as if time simply stopped. Why? Most historians believe the reality of the task caught up with its ambition. Moving something this heavy across uneven terrain without modern machinery would have required techniques far beyond anything known from that period. Even if transportation were possible, lifting and positioning the stones at the construction site would have introduced an entirely new set of challenges. There are also theories involving shifting political priorities. The Ming Dynasty oversaw countless massive building projects, and it is possible the emperor redirected resources to more achievable works. Whatever the true reason, the project was abandoned abruptly, leaving behind one of the most mesmerizing what could have been moments in architectural history. Standing before these unfinished giants today, It is easy to imagine the scale of the original vision and equally easy to understand why the quarry continues to spark debate, fascination, and awe among archaeologists and travelers alike. If carving stones the size of modern ships already sounds unbelievable, the next question pushes the mystery even further. How did the builders expect to move them? This is where the Yangshan Quarry transforms from an unfinished construction site into one of history's greatest engineering puzzles. The largest block, around 16,000 tons, is far beyond the lifting capacity of many of today's most advanced cranes. Even with modern technology, transporting such a stone over open ground would be a highly complex challenge requiring specialized equipment, reinforced transport routes, and precise calculations. Now imagine attempting this feat in the 1400s with no engines, no hydraulics, and no metal machinery built for heavy lifting. Scholars picture teams of workers using chisels, hammers, and wooden wedges to shape the stone, but the moment the block detached from the mountain, the real challenge would begin. Moving it would require massive sledging systems, miles of reinforced roads, and thousands of coordinated laborers replacing beams and logs constantly as the load inched forward. Even smaller ancient megaliths like those at Baalbek in Lebanon have sparked centuries of debate about transportation methods. The Yangshan stones make those marvels look modest in comparison. This leads to the big question: did the Ming engineers have a method in mind, or did ambition get ahead of practicality? Some historians think the plan may have looked feasible on paper but proved impossible once the true scale became clear. Others believe calculations were made too late, only after carving began, revealing a logistical problem too dangerous to risk. But there is a more intriguing possibility. Perhaps the builders possessed techniques or engineering knowledge that has not survived in written form. Records from the time focus heavily on the emperor's achievements, but rarely detail the step-by-step mechanics behind such massive projects. If a specialized transport method existed, no copy of it has ever been found. Regardless of the reason, the project stopped suddenly. The workers left behind clean, sharp cuts in the stone, as if they fully expected to return. Instead, nature has grown around the monoliths, turning them into enormous reminders of a dream pushed to its limits and a skill set we still do not entirely understand. From an unfinished monument carved above the earth, we move to a creation carved deep below it, one so vast and complex that it feels almost impossible to imagine people living there thousands of years ago. This discovery began in 1963. When a man in Cappadocia knocked down a wall in his basement and accidentally opened a passageway into darkness. What he had found was not a small storage chamber or forgotten cellar. It was the entrance to an entire underground city. Derinkuyu stretches about 60 meters deep, spread across multiple levels connected by twisting passageways and steep staircases. Early explorers quickly realized this was not a simple shelter. The city included kitchens, food storage rooms, wine and oil presses, stables for animals, communal halls, and even school-like areas. It was not designed for a few days of hiding, it was built for long-term living. One of the most impressive features is its ventilation system. More than 50 carefully positioned shafts pull fresh air down through the layers of the city, keeping even the lowest levels breathable. Some shafts served as wells, meaning people could access water without ever going to the surface. This level of planning suggests not just engineering skill, but a deep understanding of how to survive underground for extended periods. Massive circular stone doors, each weighing hundreds of kilos, were installed at key points. These could be rolled across passageways to seal off sections of the city, offering protection from intruders. Combined with hidden entrances on the surface, Derinkuyu functioned like a secure refuge built for times of danger. But Derinkuyu was not only about survival. Archaeologists found chapels and spiritual spaces, showing that life underground included community practices, rituals, and social structure. Stables, family quarters, and meeting rooms indicate this was not a temporary bunker, this was a fully designed living environment. The biggest question, of course, is, why build something this elaborate underground? Cappadocia's history is full of migrations, invasions, and cultural shifts. Some believe Derinkuyu began as early as the Hittite period. Others think it was expanded by later groups such as early Christians seeking refuge. At its peak, it could have sheltered up to 20,000 people, making it one of the most astonishing subterranean constructions in human history. Its origins, its builders, and the exact timeline of its expansion remain mysterious. What is clear is that Derinkuyu was not an accident, it was a masterpiece of planning, safety, and resilience, built by people who understood their landscape and adapted to its challenges in extraordinary ways. As breathtaking as Derinkuyu's scale is, its purpose is an even deeper mystery. Why would entire communities choose to live dozens of meters below the ground, sometimes for long stretches of time? Archaeologists have developed several theories, but none can answer every question. The most widely accepted explanation is protection. Cappadocia sits at a crossroads of ancient trade routes, where waves of different cultures, empires, and armies passed through over thousands of years. This meant prosperity, but also periods of danger. If threats approached, raiders, conflicts, rival kingdoms, people could disappear underground, sealing the stone doors behind them and surviving safely until the danger passed. But this explanation becomes even more intriguing when we consider the scale. Derinkuyu was not a quick bunker built in panic. It was carefully designed. It had ventilation, water access, food storage, sleeping areas, and spiritual spaces. This level of planning suggests it was not just used for short emergencies, it was intended to sustain large populations for extended periods. That raises the question, were surface conditions so unstable that whole populations expected to hide regularly? Another theory is tied to storage and climate. Cappadocia's volcanic rock keeps a cool, steady temperature year-round, perfect for preserving food, wine, and grain. Some scholars believe the first chambers may have begun as storage spaces, gradually expanding as different groups enlarged and adapted them for additional purposes. Over centuries, a small set of rooms could have grown into a massive, interconnected world. There is also the possibility of trade networks. Cappadocia had connections to major routes like the Silk Road. Some underground cities appear to be linked by long tunnels if true. This could indicate a system built for secure travel and communication during times when open routes were risky. Religious refuge is another strong theory. Early Christians are believed to have used Derinkuyu and surrounding underground complexes to avoid persecution. Chapels and carved crosses found in the chambers support this interpretation. In such a context, the underground city was not just a shelter, it was a sanctuary. Despite these theories, many questions remain. Who first envisioned a city this deep? Why design it for tens of thousands rather than a small community? And how many more cities like it remain hidden beneath Cappadocia's landscape? Derinkuyu stands today as a breathtaking reminder that ancient societies were far more adaptable, organized, and ingenious than we often assume. Whether born from necessity, innovation, or a mix of both, it remains one of the most extraordinary human responses to a challenging world above. Our next mystery takes us to Sichuan, China, where one of the most surprising archaeological discoveries of the 20th century revealed a civilization so visually distinct that it reshaped everything historians thought they knew about ancient China. This is the world of Sanxingdui, a culture whose artworks look nothing like those of any known Chinese dynasty. The story began quietly in 1929, when a farmer digging a ditch uncovered a handful of jade artifacts. The site was noted but not fully investigated for decades. Then, in the 1980s, large-scale excavations revealed two massive pits filled with thousands of objects: bronze statues, jade blades, gold ornaments, and enormous masks with exaggerated, almost supernatural features. These artifacts stunned archaeologists. At a time when the Shang dynasty dominated central China with its compact, symmetrical bronzes, Sanxingdui was producing towering figures, wide-eyed masks with protruding pupils, intricate gold sheets, and even a 4-meter-tall bronze tree with curling branches. The sophistication of their metalwork, especially multi-piece casting, showed a level of technical mastery that was far ahead of what many experts expected for that era. But the most striking part was not their craftsmanship, it was their style. Nothing about these pieces matches what we see in the Yellow River civilizations. The large almond-shaped eyes, sharp noses, and bold geometric shapes feel almost symbolic or spiritual, like depictions of gods, ancestors, or beings from myths we no longer know. Some masks have eyes that extend outward in tubes, as if they were meant to watch over the world with an intensity that feels both artistic and ceremonial. Who were these people? That remains one of the biggest unanswered questions in Chinese archaeology. Most researchers believe Sanxingdui belonged to the ancient Shu kingdom, a powerful Bronze Age culture separated geographically from central China by mountains and rivers. This isolation may explain their unique artistic development. Yet they left no surviving written records, and no direct historical texts describe them. Another mystery is why so many valuable objects were buried. Were the pits ritual offerings? A symbolic closure of the city? Evidence of a sudden departure? No one knows for sure. What we do know is that, at some point, the city was abandoned and the culture quietly disappeared from history. Sanxingdui challenges our assumptions about early civilizations. It reminds us that China's ancient past was not a single cultural story but a tapestry of diverse, powerful societies, some of which emerged, flourished, and vanished without leaving behind anything except breathtaking artifacts that still puzzle experts today. From intricate bronzes in China, we shift to the open deserts of the Middle East, where another mystery stretches across the land in shapes so large you can only appreciate them from above. These are the big circles, perfectly round stone constructions that have puzzled archaeologists for nearly a century. The first reports came in the 1920s, when British Royal Air Force pilots flying low over Jordan noticed strange circular outlines in the desert. From the air, they stood out clearly, massive geometric rings etched into an otherwise rugged landscape. But on the ground, these structures almost disappear. The walls are low, often no more than a meter high, and made from local stones stacked without mortar. To someone walking past, they might just look like natural rock piles. Modern satellite imagery brought these circles back into academic focus. Researchers quickly discovered that these were not random formations. They were deliberately designed, often with astonishing precision. Many circles measure roughly 400 meters in diameter, and some deviate from a perfect circle by only a few centimeters, an accuracy that is difficult even with modern surveying equipment. Despite their perfection, the circles raise more questions than answers. They have no clear entrances, no internal structures, and no obvious signs of habitation. They are not defensive walls, not animal traps, and not burial monuments, at least not based on anything archaeologists have found so far. Dating them is also difficult, since there is almost no organic material associated with them. But many researchers believe they may be at least 2,000 years old, possibly much older. Their placement is equally mysterious. They appear in open, flat areas with no strong connection to rivers, settlements, or trade routes. There is also no sign that different circles were built for different purposes. They all share nearly identical proportions and construction styles, even when separated by many kilometers. So what were they for? One idea is that they were boundary markers, perhaps used to define sacred areas or seasonal grazing zones. Another theory suggests they were ceremonial spaces, large enough to host gatherings, rituals, or processions that left no lasting physical traces inside. Some researchers think they might have been geoglyph symbols meant to be seen from surrounding hills, or even intended for deities believed to watch from above. Yet none of these theories fully explains why so much effort would be spent creating such enormous structures with no clear function. Their precision, scale, and repetition suggest a cultural meaning now lost to time. What makes the big circles so compelling is exactly this ambiguity. They sit quietly in the desert, surviving wind, sun, and centuries of erosion, massive shapes that hint at a tradition, a purpose, or a belief system that vanished long before written records could preserve it. Leaving the deserts behind, our journey takes a dramatic turn underwater beneath the calm surface of the Sea of Galilee in northern Israel. In 2003, while conducting sonar surveys, researchers detected something unexpected on the lake bed, a perfectly shaped anomaly rising from the sediment. When divers descended to investigate, they discovered a structure unlike anything else in the region. What they found was a huge conical cairn, built from countless basalt boulders, stones that do not naturally stack themselves into such an orderly form. The structure is enormous, about 10 meters high and nearly 70 meters wide at its base. In total, it weighs an estimated 60,000 tons, far more than many modern ships. And yet it sits completely submerged, hidden from view unless you know exactly where to look. The boulders appear to have been placed intentionally, without mortar, relying solely on weight and precision. This technique mirrors large stone burial mounds and ceremonial cairns found on dry land in ancient cultures around the world. But nothing in this region compares to the scale of this underwater monument. Dating the structure is challenging because water and sediment obscure everything. However, based on comparisons to similar stone constructions nearby, many researchers believe it could date back 4,000 years. Possibly to the Bronze Age. If that is true, then one major question immediately arises. Was it always underwater? Evidence suggests the water level of the Sea of Galilee has fluctuated significantly over millennia. It is possible the cairn was originally built on dry land or along an ancient shoreline, later submerged as the environment changed. If so, it may have served a role similar to terrestrial cairns, perhaps a burial site, a ceremonial marker, or a territorial monument. But there is a more dramatic possibility, that the cairn was intentionally built in the water, which would imply an impressive level of coordination and effort for a Bronze Age society. Moving and arranging massive basalt stones underwater would require extraordinary planning, especially without modern diving equipment or construction tools. Unfortunately, no artifacts or inscriptions have been found within or near the structure, so its purpose remains speculative. No other underwater monuments of this scale have been found in the Sea of Galilee, which adds to the sense of isolation and mystery surrounding it. Yet one thing is clear. Building something of this magnitude required a community willing to invest immense labor into a project that offered no immediate survival benefit. Whether symbolic, ceremonial, or practical, it must have held deep meaning for its creators. For now, the cairn sits in silence, its stones covered in algae and lake sediment, an ancient monument resting beneath the water, guarding secrets from a world that may have looked entirely different than the one we know today. Our journey now takes us to southeastern Zimbabwe, where one of Africa's most iconic archaeological sites rises from granite hills and open valleys. Known as Great Zimbabwe, this vast stone city flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries and served as the heart of a thriving kingdom connected to major trade routes across the African continent and the Indian Ocean world. At the center of this ancient city stands its most breathtaking architectural achievement, the Great Enclosure. Even today, centuries after its construction, the structure feels both powerful and elegant. From the outside, it appears as a massive oval of stacked granite blocks, dry stone masonry built entirely without mortar. Yet the walls reach heights of over 11 meters and can be more than 5 meters thick at the base. They curve smoothly around the landscape, creating a sense of solidity and grace that is remarkable for stone placed by hand. Inside the great enclosure lies a maze-like internal passage, formed by a second curving wall that winds inward. Moving through it feels intentional, almost ceremonial, like a guided route meant to control movement, restrict access, or prepare visitors for some inner sacred or political space. The stonemasons shaped and trimmed each block with astonishing precision. Even after hundreds of years of weathering, much of the wall remains stable, a testament to the builder's engineering expertise. The most famous feature inside is the conical tower, a tall, solid stone structure about 9 meters high with no doorway or interior chamber. Its purpose remains one of the site's enduring mysteries. Some believe it symbolized a granary, representing abundance and the ruler's role as provider. Others interpret it as a ceremonial monument tied to leadership, ritual, or cosmological belief. Archaeological findings around Great Zimbabwe paint a vivid picture of a powerful, wealthy center. Imported goods, Chinese porcelain, Persian ceramics, Middle Eastern glass beads show that the people here were part of far-reaching trade networks. Locally crafted items, including iron tools, gold ornaments, and soapstone carvings, speak to skilled craftsmanship and a complex society. Yet the true role of the great enclosure remains open to interpretation. Was it a royal residence, a sacred ceremonial arena, a political gathering space, or a combination of all three? The controlled passageways, towering walls, and symbolic architecture suggest it may have been a place reserved for elites or ritual specialists, an architectural expression of authority. By the 15th century, Great Zimbabwe's influence began to wane. Shifting trade routes, environmental pressures, or political changes may have contributed, but the stone walls endured long after the people moved on. Standing there today, surrounded by massive granite blocks fitted without mortar, it is impossible not to feel awe. The great enclosure is a powerful reminder that the builders of Great Zimbabwe created something monumental, an architectural legacy that defies old misconceptions and stands proudly as evidence of Africa's rich and sophisticated past. Our final mystery brings together two very different archaeological puzzles, one small and symbolic, the other massive and global. Yet both challenge our understanding of how ancient societies expressed belief, identity, and shared architectural ideas across vast distances. We begin in southern Mesopotamia, around 5000 to 4000 BC, during the Ubaid period, an era long before the rise of Sumerian city-states. Archaeologists excavating sites like Eridu, and Tel al-Ubaid uncovered dozens of small clay figurines with a striking and unusual design. These figures have human bodies but lizard-like heads, elongated snouts, almond-shaped eyes, smooth, tapered faces, and sometimes even tiny infants with the same features cradled in their arms. Their purpose remains unknown. Were they depictions of gods or protective spirits? Figures wearing ritual masks. Symbols tied to fertility, transformation, or myth. The figurines were found in both ceremonial and domestic settings, suggesting they played a role in everyday belief systems. Without written records from the Ubaid period, their meaning is left to interpretation, but their consistency tells us they represented something culturally important, not just artistic experimentation. From small symbolic objects, we move across continents to structures so large they reshape entire landscapes, dolmens. These megalithic monuments, two or more upright stones supporting a huge capstone, appear in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Some capstones weigh more than 100 tons, surpassing even certain blocks used in the Egyptian pyramids. Yet dolmens were built during the Neolithic and early Bronze Age, long before many regions had metal tools, wheels, or pack animals. Most dolmens served as burial or ceremonial sites, based on human remains and artifacts found inside. But the deeper mystery lies in their global distribution. How did cultures separated by oceans and millennia create such similar architectural forms? There is no evidence of ancient contact between Neolithic Ireland and Bronze Age Korea, yet both regions built dolmens with similar shapes, purposes, and engineering methods. Some scholars see this as a case of convergent development, different societies independently solving the same architectural challenge. Others wonder whether long-forgotten migration paths or shared ancient traditions spread these ideas across early human populations. What is certain is that dolmens required enormous planning, community effort, and technical understanding. They were not casual structures. They were statements about memory, identity, ancestors, or spiritual belief that have endured for thousands of years. Together, the Ubaid figurines and the global dolmen tradition remind us that ancient people were far more interconnected, imaginative, and symbolically rich than we often assume. Whether through shared beliefs, parallel ideas, or lost traditions, they left behind puzzles that continue to stretch our understanding of early human creativity and culture. When we step back and look at all these discoveries together, from unfinished megaliths in China to entire cities carved beneath the earth, from otherworldly bronze masks to perfect stone circles, submerged monuments, towering stone enclosures, mysterious figurines, and global dolmen traditions, we begin to see a larger pattern. Human history is not a straight line of progress. It is a landscape of brilliant experiments, forgotten innovations, and cultural expressions that do not always fit neatly into the stories we tell ourselves. Each site reminds us that ancient people were not primitive. They were problem solvers, artists, engineers, and dreamers. They built with purpose, imagination, and skills that still impress us today. And the mysteries they left behind are not signs of impossibility, they are invitations to stay curious, to keep asking questions, and to remember that so much of our past is still waiting to be understood. Maybe that is the real magic of archaeology. It is not just about digging up old stones, it is about rediscovering the creativity, resilience, and ambition that humans have always carried with them, no matter the era. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through some of the most fascinating ancient mysteries on Earth. If you enjoyed exploring these stories and want to dive even deeper into lost cities, forgotten cultures, or unexplained historical wonders, do not forget to stay tuned, there is plenty more coming. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep exploring the world's hidden stories.